Welcome to Messy Liberation, the podcast that dives deep into feminism, business, and personal growth. I'm Becky Mollenkamp.
And I'm Taina Brown. Get ready for another messy conversation through the eyes of two intersectional feminist coaches.
Let's get messy. Hello.
Hello.
It is a rainy and dreary day here in St. Louis, which I love. I know some people don't.
Yeah, it's raining here as well.
Is it? It has me all like, I went and grabbed a cardigan. I have the window open. I'm listening to the rain. There's a cool breeze blowing in. This is like my nirvana. It makes me just want to snuggle up, and I'm just so happy. I don't get as excited about hot days. I love this kind of a day.
Yeah, I'm the same way. When I was younger, I was like, I'm going to move to London because it rains a lot there, or Seattle.
I feel like I am meant to be a Londoner. I am a Anglophile. I watch, as you know, I have a TV that only shows British programming. Funny you should have mentioned Seattle, because that's actually where I wanted to take us.
Really?
Right, yes. It's
Okay.
I set us up for this. Oh, I'm going to turn off my notifications. Nobody wants to hear my beeps while we're recording. I just saw a post on Threads that came from the Starbucks founder, Howard Schultz, who's now retired, as I understand. But he announced that his family is leaving Seattle to go to Florida and he announced this on the same day that Democrats passed an income tax on Washington state, and Starbucks corporate is going to move to Nashville. And if that is true, that's huge news, because they are known for being with Seattle. Now, I don't know if that part's true or not, but there is this post. I don't really want to read all of it, but he's basically saying we're grateful to Starbucks or to Seattle, but we're moving, right? And the whole thing got me thinking about corporate greed. And that's really what I want to talk about. We don't have to talk about Starbucks specifically, but about corporate greed and this desire to evade taxes and tax obligations. And because also, I guess I'm in a real eat the rich moment of my life. I've been seeing some of the posts of Oprah and, whatever. I don't care that much about Oprah, but I don't know if you've seen some of the things coming out. She's over in France. She's at some fashion shows. A lot of the posts have been about her weight loss. I'm not here to talk about that. But the part that was interesting was she posted a photo of her on a stairwell in Coco Chanel's house. And just it had a very let them eat cake feeling. Her entire social media presence while she's over in France, while the world's on fire.
Yeah.
Literally, Iran is on fire. I don't know if you've seen the stuff coming out of there, but they're having to shelter in place because of black smoke, gas falling from the sky because of, all the oil refineries that are on fire, and she's, posting herself in her designer clothes at Chanel's house. And meanwhile, now we have the Starbucks founder saying, we don't want to pay taxes, so we're going to move where they don't tax.
Yeah.
And all of it just screams greed. And it makes me so angry, because we are definitely at this late stage capitalist experiment where you start to wonder, when does it break? And I think we've got to be getting there, because if the people who need to pay taxes are going out of their way to avoid paying taxes, how does the whole system survive, right? At what point do the rich realize you 1% might have 30% of the wealth, but you do depend on the 99% of us to actually keep things moving, to keep your wealth growing. At what point do you say, okay, that's the survival, even if you have zero heart from a practical part? Don't you at some point say, tactically, it might make sense for me to contribute a little bit so that 99% can continue to grow my wealth that I care.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's my initial thought. I have lots of stats and stuff we could talk about, but I'm in a real eat the rich period. I'm pissed off. I'm sick of corporate greed. I'm sick of individual greed. I'm sick of government corruption and greed. The greed at the government level now, in the way it's just happening so brazenly and in the open. I've always known that government greed exists, and that cronyism exists and bribery exists and all these things. I know they're there, but people in the past have endeavored to hide it a little more, right? And it's just happening openly. The level of corruption in this regime it's wild how brazen it is, Right.
Yeah.
And I just feel like that's where we've reached. We've reached this place of the rich being brazen to say, I don't want to pay taxes, so I'm moving somewhere where I don't have to. I'm so rich that I'm going to, walk down Coco Chanel's stairs and talk about that as if I'm one of the everyday people while, literally people are burning to death.
Mm-hmm.
I know how we got here.
Yeah.
I know, but I guess I'm just sitting with the shock, not surprise. But I'm just disgusted. I'm disgusted, Taina.
Yeah. Is that what you woke up to this morning?
Well, I saw this news. I've been thinking about this though, because I've commented a little bit on some of the Oprah stuff of I was like, oh, just one of the people. And it's not just her, by the way. To be clear, there are so many people.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it's Paris Fashion Week or something. I don't keep up with that stuff, so I don't really know. But I've seen other celebrities, just some of the things that they're posting right now, feeling so out of touch with what I think so many people, both here and abroad, are feeling and experiencing, and then to see the government corruption, which I've been watching. And then I guess this news that I just saw was just one more piece of this big puzzle of, I'm also in the throes of writing my book, or well, now the book is written, of promoting my book, which is trying to be some antidote to this corruption and greed.
Yeah.
And I guess it just all feels like, I'm having one of those nihilistic existentialist
moments.
Right. What's the point?
Yeah. It's like, fuck it all, burn it down.
And to some degree, I don't know. Maybe that's what has to happen. I mean, as we talk about let them eat cake.
Yeah.
The French Revolution, and thinking about what does it take sometimes to get that 1%, those corrupt, wealthy folks who've lost all touch with any humanity? What does it take to get them to pay attention?
Yeah.
I mean, I think strikes are a really good place.
Yeah.
But burning it down also does it, right? So anyway, I don't know. Any initial thoughts to what I've shared?
Yeah. I mean, there's, the logical, well, not logical, but there's maybe logical, I don't know, but there's a part of me that's like, it's kind of good that it's happening out in the open now, because it's where the lines are, the lines are clear, right? And for people who are not outraged, now where people stand, right? And it's easier to take action. It's easier to identify people who are or aren't values aligned, whether on a personal or professional level. And it's part of the process in terms of change, right? Like any kind of change. If everything is happening in the shadows and you aren't sure where to direct your attention or your energy, or who, not who necessarily, but what the targets are, then it's kind of hard to make any change happen. So it's good, that it's happening out in the open. It's not good that it's happening. It's good that it's out in the open. But at the same time, that doesn't negate the feelings of just exhaustion and frustration and just rage and just what the fuck? Can we just get a break, and so it's it doesn't make up for that. It doesn't make that go away. And there's nothing, right, that's going to make that feel better. There's nothing to be said or done, at least not immediately, that's going to make that feel better. I think as humans, we tend to look for that immediate sense of relief, right? Think about when you lose someone, or whether it's someone or a job or a pet or whatever, immediately people are oh, well, they're in a better place, or looking for the silver lining, right? And it's sometimes there's no fucking silver lining. That's just the reality of it. Life just really sucks sometimes. It's really hard sometimes. And there's no rhyme or reason to it sometimes. And that's just the hard part of it. And I think we live in a culture where everyone's constantly chasing these quick dopamine hits, and we aren't conditioned to deal with the reality of grief and hard things, right? We're conditioned to use microwaves and drive-throughs and have 30-minute sitcoms that end on a happy note, right? Where the solution or the problem gets solved really quickly, or happily ever after fairy tales, right? All of those things. And so when things don't turn out that way, we're just what did I do wrong? How can I make this go away as quickly as possible? And that's just not how it works. Not that it's not how it works sometimes, but it takes work to get there. And we're not usually taught that or equipped with the tools and resources to do the work to get there. It makes things like this frustrating, because then it's we just want like a quick solution. We want a quick answer, and there is no quick and easy solution or answer or way to just like feel better about this. Like we just have to sit in it for as long as it takes.
I don't like that though.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying I like it. Listen, I'm not saying I like it either, but if I have learned anything, it's like you can't kick and scream as much as you need to, but it's not gonna rush the process.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. It's not like it goes quickly, but I guess I get it feels like one of these things where it's slow and fast, where like when you look at the data on CEO pay versus worker pay as one example, like it was a slow uptick until it became a drastic, like straight up and down sort of uptick. Because in the 1978, since 1978, that pay has increased by 1,000%. So like
Yeah.
leading up to that, it was more like this. And then Reaganism comes along and right. And so since basically the 80s, it's just been on this wildly fast trajectory up. And I know the 80s are not like yesterday, but when you look at the long span of
Yeah, it was just
industrialism
yesterday.
and
Yeah.
yeah, the idea of having sort of a working class versus a management and leader or owner class, like that trajectory has gone, it went slow and now really quickly. And it's now to the point where the ratio or that difference, and this stat is 2 years old, so it's even higher now,
Mhm.
but it's 285 to 1 how much CEOs make versus their workers. So we're nearing 300 times more, right? The average or the top US CEO compensation, the average for those like Fortune 500 companies, they're making almost $20 million a year. Right? And that's 300 times
Yeah.
more than their average workers. And in some areas, it's as much as like 600 times more. And that's 1,000% increase just since, in my lifetime,
Yeah. Yeah.
that is wild. So like
Yeah.
it's slow and also it's accelerating really quickly,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because if you keep going at the percentages we're going, it's not sustainable, right?
Yeah.
So it does feel like while it's really slow, at some point, it has to be a breaking
Yeah, it's
point.
gonna hit a wall.
Yeah. And what is that? What is that breaking point? And I don't know what that is, but we're coming off the heels of 2020 inflation from a very real event, COVID, and the supply chain problems that then caused.
Yeah.
However, what we also learned through that was the amount of corporate greed that got baked into that very real experience, right? There were recordings that came out time and again of CEOs talking about how they could use that very real
Yeah, to make money.
situation to their advantage, right? And I think anybody who goes shopping knows the things that we've seen, like the ways that there's fewer chips in the bag, or it's the same price, but the packaging's now smaller, right? All of
Yeah.
these things that they've been doing because they know they can and they're getting away with it. Because as the CEOs have talked about, the way they're framing this is, buyers have become acclimated, right? They're now getting used to this. So we can now just continue what was a real response to a real situation, then becomes normalized. Well, now we're about to go through a similar thing because of the Strait of Hormuz. For anybody who knows about that, that's the major oil supply pipeline, like that channel that is used for 80% of the world's oil. Granted, the U.S. doesn't get its oil from there. However, we are a global society.
Global economy.
What happens in one part of the world affects us because if
Yeah.
China has to pay 80%, has to pay astronomically higher for oil because they can't get it anymore from where they did, and now it has to come farther, and all of the things, and there's less of it, their prices go up. Well, guess what happens to the U.S. where so much of our goods come from China? So
Yeah.
here people are like, oh, it won't affect us. It's affecting us already. Gas prices have already gone up a lot.
Yeah.
All of our goods are going to go up again.
Yeah.
And we have already seen what happens when corporations have an opportunity to use a very real situation to their advantage. The greed is going to show up again, right? And that means we haven't even recovered from the inflation of 5 years ago, right? And that proceeded for
Yeah.
several years after. People are still struggling because, again, those worker pay, our pay doesn't change. It's all funneling up to the top, and the worker pay isn't changing while inflation's going up. So you're making less. We are now making less than we were
Yeah.
making. Like,
Yeah.
it's mind-boggling to me in the ways that I see so many fellow Gen Xers and millennials who are like, we feel like the first generation that is doing worse than our parents. And
Yeah.
throughout history, it's always been generations have done better than the generation before them.
Yeah.
And that even includes historically more marginalized communities,
Yeah.
because there have been historically more rights given, more
Yeah. More
advantages,
gains. Yeah.
right? And so even historically marginalized communities have done better generation over generation, not at the same rate, right? Those gaps remain. So I want to honor that. But we've all been doing better until now. And now
Yeah.
suddenly I see millennials and especially then Gen Z.
Yeah.
And I see my son, Gen Alpha, and think, what the fuck is he going to
What's
do?
yeah.
It's like, how does that become sustainable? Housing
Yeah.
prices, food prices, all of it. It's like it makes me want to do a little more research into past revolutions because I haven't done a lot of that. I'm
Yeah.
very curious. What were the breaking points? What created, where did the kindling get so dry that it
Mm.
finally ignited? Because I feel like we've got a lot of kindling here. Not quite dry enough yet to
Yeah.
ignite, but in my lifetime, it feels closer than maybe it ever has.
Yeah. Yeah.
As far as class war, because again,
Yeah.
I'm civil rights and things like that. These are,
It's a
I'm trying,
little bit different. Yeah.
yeah. And I don't mean to separate them out or even prioritize center whiteness, because this is a class issue that affects,
Everybody.
and
Yeah.
affects marginalized people even more, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. The work since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, when we first saw unions form,
Hmm.
workers fight back, and that was in the, 18s, roughly
Yeah.
1840s.
Yeah.
I don't know that I think in US history anyway, that
Yeah.
we've seen this kind of disparity and growing anger about it.
Yeah.
What do you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah. I mean, it makes me think about like International Women's Day just passed, right? It was on March
Yeah.
8th. And
By the way, I love the people who pointed out it came on daylight savings time, so it was the one day of the year that was only 23 hours, and someone was
yeah,
like, "This is giving very 78 cents on the dollar."
yeah, yeah, it shorted us. It shorted us for sure. But like thinking about, that whole cause for celebration, and obviously, there's like social media posts everywhere about it and whatnot. But like that started as a labor movement, right? That didn't start as a way to just be like, yay, thanks, women. Like, you're beautiful, you're a boss, babe, whatever. Like, no,
Bus.
started it started as a labor movement. Like women started striking and protesting for labor rights for themselves, for the children who were legally allowed to work at that time, right? For fair wages, for safer working conditions. It was, and this is not just in the US, this is all over the world. It
It's
started,
International Women's
it's
Day, yeah.
international. Yeah. Internationally, it started as a labor movement in every single country that has acknowledged it. And so it was supported and advocated for by communist parties and socialist parties, right? And so to like to forget that and to just kind of like gloss over that or whatnot, like I think we do ourselves a disservice. And I think it's important to remember that, like you said, all of these issues are related, and this isn't just about money, right? This isn't just about class. Like the way that we earn money, the way that we spend money affects different people from different groups, different ways, some more than others. And so this is everybody's issue, regardless of gender or race or sex or nationality or citizenship status you have, right? And I think it would be interesting to take a little bit of a dive to see what was that tipping point in things like the French Revolution and
I
other
mean,
places and
there's
whatnot.
endless revolutions and over
Right,
time, right?
right, right. But one thing that I was thinking too was like this, and this is what we kind of go back to time and again, is that like the only way we get through this is together, right? Is through community. Gas has already gone up like 50 cents or something, like, and it might continue to go up. The cost of goods and services is probably going to go up.
It's about
And
to.
so, yeah. And so the thing to do now is like, sure, be angry, be frustrated, feel all of that, but also like think strategically. Okay, so like, what does my community need to like prepare for this? Like, how can we come together to prepare for this? And do you need to reactivate a mutual aid fund? Do you need to reactivate a community pantry? Do you need, like things like
Yeah.
that? This is the time to start thinking about that. So that way, the when it starts to hurt, like really
Yeah.
badly in terms of like financially, like you already have a support system set up, right? So that way you're not scrambling, because that's just going to add to the exhaustion and the frustration and the stress.
Well, that my quote that I have in my office at all times, which is without community, there is no liberation, Audre Lorde, because absolutely. And as we talk about the kindling and the sort of the flame point, I think one of the key differences between America and so many of these other, or the United States and so many of these other places that we might be talking about is this hyper individualism. And the fact that I think that makes that kindling and the spark point so much higher
Yeah.
because it has to be at it. It's like it has to reach this individual level at so many in various individual levels before it ignites. Where in other parts of the world that are more community driven, more collective based, it is like, oh, my neighbor has already reached their spark point, so that's mine too, right? That isn't here. It's like my neighbor has reached theirs, but I'm still all right. So yeah.
Yeah.
And we have that perspective here. I just wanted to quickly say too on the Women's Day thing because I love it's like the girl bossification of everything.
Yeah.
And I just think we often overlook the fact that women's labor has historically also always been stolen. And I mean all women's labor, right? So obviously, yes, enslaved women, their labor was stolen in the most violent of ways. Also, all women, including white women, have had their labor stolen over generations and generations. Because whether it is through force or because there is literally no way to survive, right, without anyone to take care of you, right? Women have been forced into servitude
Yeah.
of many kinds: household labor, care labor, child rearing, taking care of the men in the house, all of these things, education, all of this labor has been historically stolen from women. So I think that doesn't always get talked about or centered in that same way.
Yeah.
And again, in no way is that to draw a direct parallel to enslaved women whose labor was forcibly stolen in ways that are far more
Mhm.
heinous, obviously.
Yeah.
And the history of all women is stolen labor. It's all of our shared history. It's just in different degrees, and those
Mhm.
degrees need to be honored for sure, right? Because it makes a vast difference. And the fact that there were white women who were very much responsible for that
Mhm.
violently stolen labor of Black
Mhm.
women, right? Because again, this trickle down, knockdown effect of like, well, if I'm at least one rung above, then somehow I've now achieved some sort of proximity
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
power, right? So honoring all of that. But I just think when we talk about things like International Women's Day, I just don't think women enough. And I think if more white women especially understood what life actually was like and this whole like domestic bliss picture that they have, like some of these women who are
Yeah.
into the I can't even, what's the name of it? This whole movement now of
Trad,
like,
trad,
yeah,
trad.
thank you. Like it's so gross to me, I can't even say it. Trad wives. If they really, white women really understood what life was like for white women 100 years ago, 200 years ago, and I mean most white women, not all.
Yeah.
Again, that 1% has always
Yeah.
existed, right?
Yeah.
But for the average white woman who didn't have unbelievable wealth, their lives did not look great. It was
Yeah.
also stolen labor. Your entire existence was having to care for others.
Yeah.
There's no going to the spa. Like I see a lot of these trad women and it's like they're still getting work done on their faces. They're still finding time to work
Yeah.
out. They're still, whatever. Like that's not what life was like. And I just think that we don't talk enough about that. And I think if we did, I think maybe more white women would not be in that fucking 52% because they would understand that, as we've heard, our shackles may not look the same, right?
But
But
they're
our
honest nevertheless.
right? Yes, we have to fight for each other because the fight is still the same. So anyway,
Yeah.
I just wanted to add
Yeah.
that to the
Yeah.
girl bossification stuff because
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I saw something the other day that was like, there's no such thing as a woman who doesn't work. They're just women who don't get paid for their labor.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And I
That's
was like, yeah, yeah, that's true. And and I want to say also, like, if you feel like, if you're a woman and you feel like it's your role and your unpaid, quote unquote, unpaid job to care for other people, for your family, that's totally fine. Like that's your choice. It's your prerogative if that's how you feel like you want to spend your time and your life. That is absolutely okay. That doesn't negate the fact that you are still doing work and not getting paid for it.
yeah.
and that other women are also forced to do that who don't necessarily want to be able
Right.
to do
I'd say
it.
that key word was choice.
Yeah,
Again, just like everything with
yeah,
choice, including bodily autonomy.
yeah,
It's like, yeah, that's lovely if you make the choice you make.
yeah,
But that's the point is we're all fighting for
yeah,
choice.
yeah. Yeah, some women don't get that choice, like, they have to, and
Yeah,
so
and the
it's
single mother issue too, because we excuse men from parenting, right? Like for
Mhm,
men, it's a choice. It's not a requirement, where for women, it's a requirement. Is
yeah,
that, and again, some of that is because women want to be like they're choosing to be with the children, but it's because men are given an option and women are
yeah,
not. And that's not okay because then that again, that's labor and it's discounted. When you look at care work, I told you about the time I went to the vet's office and it was all women at this
mhm,
emergency vet's office in the middle of the night because it's the least desirable shift, right? So they do have a few men that work there. They all get the primo shifts. It's all women working this night shift and it's underpaid work. We don't pay veterinary staff and or even veterinarians. They make very little money for the work that they do.
mhm,
Life-saving work, and again, you can decide whether or not you think animals have whether you have empathy for
out,
animals, but
yeah,
the work they do is important work, it's care work, and it's wildly underpaid, and so, of course, who's doing that work? It's women. The same is true for care for humans in the hospital. If you go to a hospital, you will see most of the nurses are women, most of the aides are women, these underpaid the people working in the cafeteria are probably women. If you
mhm,
go to a school, particularly younger schools, college gets a little bit of a different experience, but they get paid more. There's more
yeah,
men professors, but when you go to, public schools, you're going to see primarily women
yeah,
working. It is if you go to daycare, it's even worse. It's
yeah,
almost
yeah,
all women. And because that's even lower paid, we don't value that work. And so it doesn't get paid and it falls on women. So women are we're doing work for free.
mhm,
When we do get compensated for our work, it's getting compensated at 78 cents on the dollar, but that's only if you're actually competing with men in quote unquote traditionally male work. If you're working in care fields that have been traditionally female dominated, you're not even making 78 cents on the dollar
yeah,
because there is no comparison to what the men are making. You're just woefully underpaid.
yeah, and that 78 cents is white women.
Yes. And thank you.
Women who are not white make even less to
Far
the dollar.
less. Yes,
Yeah,
indigenous women make the least amount,
yeah,
and then I think Black women, Hispanic women, and then Asian women, I think actually are almost on par, but
yeah,
because of, again, model minority stuff that is
yeah,
also unfair and oppressive. Okay, can we talk about taxes really quick then too? Because I wanna make sure just to hit on that a little bit
yeah,
more, because this guy, Howard Schultz from Starbucks, is relocating from Washington, a blue state, right? A very solidly blue state. Now, that is because Seattle is a huge city,
yeah,
and urban areas tend to be more Democrat. Again, if we
yeah,
look at the election results, 90% plus of Black votes vote Democrat. White women do a real shit job, right? We're
mhm,
like 50, 55%. White men are even worse. So in urban areas, you tend to have more diversity. That's going to lead to more Democrats getting elected. There
mhm,
are plenty of rural areas in Washington that are red, ruby red. But
mhm,
because of this large city, it makes
yeah,
Washington a solidly blue state. There's no Republicans are going to win for governor or senator there, whatever. He's moving to Florida, which has become a very red state. At one time, it was a little more purple. It's a very red state now. It's led by a maniac governor. They are getting rid of all sorts of taxes so that there's no personal property tax. There's like no income tax. Like just come live in Florida for free. You don't have to pay any taxes, right? Even though it's expensive to live there for other
it
reasons,
is.
the population and whatnot, they're getting rid of so many of the taxes. So he's moving from that state to that state. The part of that I think really, really needs to get hammered home, and I think is a part of, I think could be potentially, if ever there were any Democrats with actual balls, and I mean that whether they're men or women, if there could be some Democrats who would say, we are no longer going to fund red states because blue states collect a larger percentage of taxes that then go to the federal government that then get distributed out to the states based on need, not based on how much you contributed. And the red states, because they're not collecting their fair share, they're
Need
getting
more.
a big percentage of government aid. So it's welfare, not in the way that people think of welfare, but the sort of government
Yeah,
welfare, right? That tax welfare, I think, is maybe what they call it. But so Democrats are overpaying into a system that they are then under receiving from, and we are paying to support these people who are leaving so that they don't have to pay their fair share, so that they can then collect all the benefits of living in a place where they're not having to pay their fair share. It is wild. It is unfair. I don't understand how it continues. And that to me feels like if enough people understood how taxes work, and I'm talking about at that level, because the other piece of this around taxes is the rich aren't paying enough.
Yeah.
I found, so what was it somewhere in
Some
here,
of them
but
don't pay anything.
many of them don't. I had the number pulled up and I'm not sure where it is, but there is a percentage of corporations that are not paying. 109 out of the Fortune 500 companies. This was back in 2022, from 2018 to 2022. I'm sure it's more now. So fully 1/5 of the top Fortune 500 companies paid $0 in federal tax. $0. They're paying nothing because, well, corporations aren't people. The individuals are paying. So the CEOs are paying some personal taxes, but the corporations themselves are paying nothing. Right? So Starbucks wasn't even paying money. They're not paying federal taxes in Washington. They're paying some state taxes. They're not paying federal taxes. That wasn't enough. And I'm not saying Starbucks. I don't know for sure. Maybe they're not one of those 100, but they probably are. But so, some of them included here, just so people know, like GM paid 4% in taxes. And they're supposed to be paying a 21% tax rate. Tesla, 1.5%. This was in 2023. T-Mobile, 0.4%.
Jeez,
Tax rate. Now, the average person is paying like something like 20 to 30%, right?
Yeah.
Depending on how much you make. But that is the actual tax rate. What is the effective tax rate after all of the loopholes and write-offs and things that people get? The highest percent people are still, even those corporations, those top 1% of earners are paying very little of their actual income into taxes, right? Despite the fact that they are making, so the top 1% owns like 30% of the wealth. 1% owns 30%, has 30% of the wealth in this country, but they're paying something like a 40% tax rate. So that's not 40% of like total. They're not paying 40% of the taxes. They're paying 40% on their income, not on their wealth, by the way, on their income. So point being, our tax system is deeply, deeply flawed.
Yeah.
It benefits that wealthy people. It also benefits tax evaders and puts the burden on those of us who are doing the right thing, often just because of fear of going to jail. That's why I think most of us pay our taxes. Some of us pay our taxes because it's also the right fucking thing to do.
Yeah.
It's what pays for my kids' school system. It's what makes sure my roads work, right? It's what makes sure that we have operating street lights and that I have a police department. Well, we could debate that. A fire department that can respond if I have a fire, and I don't even have health care and I'm still paying. And these rich people are not. And I'm helping to fund them so they can leave a place where they might have to pay some amount of taxes to go somewhere where they don't, while they have 1% of the wealth and I have nothing.
Yeah. And
they have 30% of the wealth and I have nothing and I have to pay for them.
And you're helping to fund these wars and bombings and
right, because what percentage of our money, our tax money, is going, because the number one place your tax dollars go to is the
military
Department
funding.
of War, as it's now called, because we're not even a department of, it's not even a defense. Now it's a Department of War.
Yeah.
As we can see, that's very clearly what they meant when they were changing the name to a Department of War. They're ready to make wars. And that's the number one place your dollars go. It's not to education. It's clearly not to healthcare.
Yeah.
And it goes straight into genocide. And I have to pay that. And meanwhile, Howard Schultz is going to relocate so he can continue to shirk his duty in paying.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can subsidize him.
Yeah. And the biggest receiver of funding, the biggest international receiver of funding is
Israel.
Yeah. And they provide free healthcare and education.
And now here we are funding their war.
We've gone their healthcare and their education.
Yeah. We've gone to war on their behalf at a cost of $1 billion a day. I don't know if people have seen that. This war has already cost us, because we've been in it 10 days, something like $10 billion. Billion. And Howard Schultz needs to relocate to Florida so he doesn't have to pay taxes. I have to pay taxes. I don't get out of taxes. And guess what? I can barely afford it, because when we talk about, an effect, we have in the US what's called a progressive tax system. There are some people who don't like that. They want a flat tax system. But a progressive tax system, the way it's set up, is supposed to, in theory, tax the wealthy at a higher percentage because they can bear a greater weight.
Yeah.
5% in taxes to somebody who's making $15,000, $30,000 a year. Now it's probably
Yeah.
30. I mean, if you're living below poverty wages, right? And you have to pay taxes, any amount is food off your table. There's
Yeah.
no give. There's no room to give. When you have billions, a billion can go away and you don't notice.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you can
Drop
pay a
in the
much
bucket.
higher percentage of your taxes. There are many people who think that's not fair and that the wealthy should pay 10% and everyone should pay the same amount. That's not what was intended, and for good reason. I believe in progressive taxes.
Yeah.
The problem is the way
The execution of that.
our system is set up is that we give endless loopholes, we give endless deductions, and the people who can maximize those are the people who can afford help to get them, who have a business, because that's a big part of the way to be able to get
Yeah.
those deductions. If you don't have a business, you don't even get most deductions.
Yeah.
It's a completely corrupt system.
Yeah.
Even though I think progressive taxes in and of themselves are actually a really good idea, we just
Yeah.
execute it very poorly. And I think it's the
Yeah.
same thing they do in many other European countries where they manage to have healthcare.
Mhm.
But that's because people actually have to pay their fair share.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, for, for people to wrap their heads around how this works, it's like if you had a roommate and you were making $40,000 a year and your roommate was making $80,000 a year, but you split all the expenses down the middle and you paid an equal share. Like, that's gonna be a bigger burden on you, the person who is making half of what your roommate is making, right? And that's gonna affect the quality of the environment in your home. And at some point it'll affect your roommate too, right?
And in effect, you are subsidizing
Yeah.
them
Yes.
because you're paying a greater percentage of your
Yeah.
income.
Yeah.
So you're in effect subsidizing them to be able to pay a lesser percentage of their
Yeah.
income, which is basically exactly what's happening with the red state, blue state tax
Yeah.
divide. And I don't think there's good education in this country
No.
about
No.
any of this. I don't think people understand how taxes work. And I think they make them incredibly complicated by design because
For
the
sure.
average person and even a well-educated person can't understand. Our tax code is as thick as I was going to say phone book. People don't know what those are anymore, but it's thick. It's real thick, right? No average person can understand it.
Yeah.
Becoming a CPA is hard work.
Yeah.
Many people fail the test more than once because
Yeah.
it is so hard and it
Yeah.
changes every year, and even more drastically with every new administration and every new Congress. We don't make it so that people can understand
Yeah.
how taxes work, right?
Yeah.
People just assume that if you're rich, you're paying a lot of money in taxes, or they will hear something about, well, the top 1% or 1%'s on a 40% tax bracket. That's insane. 40%. And the people at the bottom are paying 5% or whatever it is. But that's also the actual tax bracket versus the effective tax bracket.
Yeah.
Effective means what they are actually paying, which is
Yeah.
far, far less.
Yeah.
And that doesn't in any way tell you the total raw number of what they pay.
Right. Right. People just see the percentages and think it's
a
less.
ton. But if you're in the top 1%, let's say you have $1 billion. Oh, I'm so bad at math. Let's see if I can do this. And you're paying 40%, but effectively you're probably paying 20%. And most people don't make $1 billion a year. Some do. Let's say you made $1 million in a year. Okay. Because that's still, for most people, that's astronomical.
Calculator right here. Let's see.
Great. If you make $1 million a year and let's say you paid 30%, what's 30% of $1 million? 300,000, right? Yeah. So you're left with $700,000.
Yeah.
Now, if you make 50,000 a year and you have to pay 10%, let's say that's 5,000.
Yeah.
So you're left with 45,000.
Yeah.
Do people understand the difference of survival when you have, let's say, each of these is
Yeah.
a family of four. A family of four surviving on 45,000 versus a family of four surviving on 700.
That's 700,000. Yeah.
Anyone with a brain can say it's a lot easier to survive on 700,000.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're paying a way higher percentage. They're paying a higher dollar amount. But what does it represent to their life? And
Yeah.
that's what we don't talk about because we can't. If we start talking about that, then the kindling starts to burst. And that's why I'm like, let's talk about it. Because even if 100 people hear this and 100 people get angry and 100 people understand a little bit better how the rich continue to amass more wealth, evade taxes, evade responsibility,
Yeah.
let their greed win at our expense, then maybe they do something. Maybe they vote different. Maybe they write to a congressman. Not that it'll make a huge difference, because a lot of them, especially our senators, are in that high tax bracket or in that
Yeah.
1%, and they're
Yeah.
very invested in protecting themselves too. But we do something. We show up at a rally. There's a No Kings rally coming up on March 28th. There are things happening. There are ways to, and again, or even if it means you start to think more seriously about, who is my community? What does
Mm-hmm.
it look like for me to help with a food bank for my neighbors or at my
Yeah.
kid's school? My kid's school has one. I continue to think about ways that I can get more people contributing. What are the things that we can do at an individual level?
Yeah. Yeah. And if you don't know where to start, we're reading this in the coaches circle, but pick up this book, How We Show Up,
I'll show it
by
too.
Mary Birdsong. And so I read it a few years ago, and you've read it already, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And it gives really practical examples of how to show up in community in ways that are helpful and supportive and fill in the gaps. Yeah.
Yeah, and
So,
it's pulling from the wisdom of people who've had to historically rely on community to survive.
yeah. Yeah.
And I think in this hyper individualistic white supremacist culture that we live in, many of us, but most especially those of us with the greatest privilege, have not learned that. We don't know what real community means, right? We
Yeah.
we don't even understand it in a practical way.
Yeah.
And we need to learn from people who've never really had that choice to not know, right? We're
Yeah. We've had
survival.
to build it.
Yeah.
We've had to
They've
build
had to
it.
build it, and we can replicate and learn from.
Yeah.
And again, on the free labor of folks who shouldn't have had to do that, which sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will just say, if you're new to the concept of community, or you're in there in the trenches trying to build something or sustain something, like, I think sometimes when we talk about community, people get this sense that it's this utopia. It's not. It's not. It's fucking hard. Like, people have weird personalities that like that rub up against you, and that, may not sit right with you, or say or do things sometimes that can be problematic or offensive, that you have to like talk out, or choose to just, not ignore, but just like decide what the cost is, right? For you to either ignore it, or not ignore it, but to proceed with grace, right? To give people room to grow and be themselves. And so versus, cutting someone off. And so it's not a utopia. It's hard work to be in community with people, to be in like legit community with people in a way that is sustainable and is long term. We're so quick to just be like, oh, that doesn't work for me, I'm out, right? Because again, that immediate sense of satisfaction, that immediate, like, if it's not working immediately, then I must be doing the wrong thing, or it's not for me. And that's not true. It takes effort. It takes hard work. So, but it is worth it. It is worth it. Like, there is the possibility of, amidst all this anger and frustration and rage, there is the possibility to still laugh and like engage in pleasure and like love and have fun. Like, it's
And
not
find hope.
impossible. And find hope. It's not impossible for those things to exist within the same realm of your life. Like, they're not mutually exclusive. But if you don't have a place where you can find those things, then you're fucked.
For sure. I mean, I don't know that I would be functioning at half the speed and ability that I'm functioning without having my pockets of community I can turn to for various things. I have a school community for my kids' school of people that are equally invested and interested
Hmm.
in the same sort of liberatory lens as me. I have a community for business folks. I have my friend community. Like, I need these. And again, community can also mean different communities for different reasons, right? The same way we've talked about friendships for reasons and seasons, you can have communities that are the same as well. So it's not like you have to have one community that's the answer for all things. You may have different communities that work on different
Yeah.
things or in different parts of your
Yeah.
life or serve different needs for you. But starting to find those before you need them is really important.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So if you don't have that, that's where you start.
Yeah.
That's where you start doing something and taking some of your power back, by figuring out what your community looks like and what you want it to look like, and then start filling in those gaps.
And when it comes to the rich, eat the rich.
Yeah.
And share that message. Make it clear that you are pro-union. Even if
Hmm.
you're not in a union, let people
Yeah.
know you're pro-union. Vote pro-union. Going back to, does my vote align with my self-interests or with my neighbors, right? With my community,
Hmm.
with the collectives? That means voting pro-union, whether you benefit from unions or not. whether unions cost your company a little more money or not.
Yeah.
Hiring union, right? That's one place that we think about it. It also means talking about these issues. Don't just think about it, but where you have safety to do so, talk about that in your communities, online. Let people know, help educate others about these disparities, because too many people don't know about them. And the more that we spread that message, the more I think that begins to help with that idea of creating a united front against this 1%. Because like we talked about this once, remember we said 1% of, let's just even go the US, 1% of the US population is what, 3,300? Because don't we have 330 million? So it's like 30, is it 3,300 or 33,000? Either way,
it's really a small number.
It's very small when you consider that we have 33 or 330 million. We are talking hundreds of millions of us against, let's say it's 33,000.
Yeah.
The numbers are clear as day. That there are more
there are small towns that have more people than
there are that 1%. There are more of us than them by 99%.
Yeah.
But until we understand that all of our plight is connected, they continue to win. They continue to use us. They continue to extract and laugh in our faces, because that's what's happening now. Now it is so blatant they're laughing in our faces. Don't let that happen. We don't have to let it happen.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Because again, I came in feeling fiery and I'm feeling a little better. That's why community matters. These conversations help me. Thank you, Taina.
You're welcome.
Thanks for listening to Messy Liberation.
Thank you so much for your support and for listening today.
Until next time.